Good morning Year 6 and welcome to our next home learning lesson. Today's learning objective is to name, classify and identify properties of quadrilaterals and use this information to identify missing angles. Here's a quick starter activity. We're going to do a vocabulary check. I'd like you to match these words to the meanings. We have the words perpendicular, equal, bisect, adjacent, right angle, parallel, interior angle and diagonal. Pause the video, write these in your book and see if you can match the correct meaning to the correct word. Let's see how you did. So, perpendicular means a line or a plane at an angle of 90 degrees to another line or plane. Equal means the same as. Bisect means divide something into two equal parts. Adjacent means next to. Right angle is an angle of 90 degrees. Parallel is are lines that have the same distance between them and will never meet. Interior angle is an angle inside a shape, and diagonal is a straight line joining two opposite corners of a straight-sided shape, such as a square or a rectangle. Time for another quick task. Look at the shapes on the next slide. For each shape, write the letter of the shape, write the name of the shape, and list at least 2 or 3 properties of the shape. Here are the shapes, so remember, I need the letter of the shape, the name of the shape, and 2 or 3 properties of the shapes. So before you start, here's a little helper. Here are some general properties of 2D shapes. You could identify the number of sides, the number of angles, the types of angles. They could be a right angle, an acute angle, an obtuse angle, or a reflex angle. You could identify their lines of symmetry and whether it's a regular or an irregular shape. Remember, a regular shape is where all the sides and angles are equal, and a irregular is a shape that has sides and angles that are different. Here they are again. Pause the video now and complete the quick task. So today we're looking at quadrilaterals. So what is a quadrilateral? A quadrilateral is a 2D shape. It is a 4-sided shape. All of its sides are straight, and it has 4 interior angles that add up to 360 degrees. That last point is very important, so remember that. It has 4 interior angles that add up to 360 degrees. Here's a quadrilateral, a square. Do you know what the properties of a square are though? Now, a square's sides are all equal length. Opposite sides are parallel and all interior angles are equal. So if the interior angles of a quadrilateral must equal 360 degrees, what must the interior angle of the squares be? We can work that out by dividing 360 by 4, as there are 4 interior angles. Now, we can make 360 100 times smaller. That's now 36. how many 4s are in 36? That's right, there's 9. But because we made that 10 times smaller, we can now make our answer 10 times bigger, making 90. So we know that each angle is 90 degrees. And we know that 90-degree angles are right angles. So all the interior angles of a square are right angles. Here's another quadrilateral. This time we have a rectangle. Do you know what the properties of a rectangle are? Now they have opposite sides that are parallel and of equal length. And again, every angle is a right angle. Squares can be classified as rectangles, but not all rectangles can be classified as squares. Can you explain why? Pause the video now and see if you can explain that. So a rectangle has opposite sides of equal lengths and has 4 90-degree angles. A square has opposite sides of equal lengths and 4 90-degree angles as well. However, in a square, all the sides are equal length. This is not the case for a rectangle. Next we have a rhombus. The properties of a rhombus are all 4 sides are equal length. Diagonal opposite angles are equal. 2 angles are acute and 2 angles are obtuse. Remember, an acute angle is less than 90 degrees and an obtuse angle is more than 90 degrees but no greater than 180. Opposite sides are parallel and diagonal bisects each other at right angles. So what other name could be given to a rhombus? That's right, we can also call a rhombus a parallelogram. Let's look more closely at a parallelogram. So, do you know what the properties of a parallelogram are? It has 2 pairs of equal parallel sides. Diagonally opposite angles are equal. And 2 angles are acute and 2 angles are obtuse. Now a rhombus is a typical parallelogram. Which properties mean that not all parallelograms are rhombuses? Pause the video now and have a think. Maybe you want to go back and check at the properties of a rhombus as well. So in a rhombus, all the sides are equal, but not all parallelograms have equal sides. Only rhombuses. Next we have a trapezium. Do you know what properties of a trapezium are? Now, a trapezium has 1 pair of parallel sides. Next we have a kite. The properties of a kite are that it has 2 pairs of equal adjacent sides. Diagonals bisect each other at right angles. And it has 1 pair of opposite angles that are equal. So using all of this information, how can we find the missing angle of certain shapes, like a parallelogram? So what do we know that can help us? We know that the angles in a quadrilateral must equal 360. We know that opposite angles in a parallelogram are equal. So, if A equals 110, so must C. And if D equals 70, so must B, as they are opposite angles, which we know for a parallelogram must be equal. We can check our answer by adding all of these angles up. So, 110 plus 110 plus 70 plus 70 equals 360. So we know we are correct. Let's see if we can find the missing angles for this regular trapezium. So first, let's look at what we already know that can help us. We know that all four angles must add up to 360 degrees. And the two lines show that the sides are equal. So angles D and C must also be equal. So if we add up A and B, that gives us 190 degrees. We know that all the angles must equal 360 degrees. So if we take 190 away from 360, that gives us 170. That means that D and C must equal half of 170. So if we divide that by 2, that gives us 85. We now know that D and C equal 85. We can check our answer by adding all the angles up, and if it makes 360 degrees, we know we're correct. So 95 and 95 plus 85 and 85 do make 360, so yes, we are correct. Let's look at finding the missing angle for a kite. If angle A is 120 and angle D is 40, what are the angles of B and C? Now, first, what do we know that can help us? We know that the angles of a quadrilateral must all add up to 360. And we know that one pair of angles is equal. So, A and C are equal. So if A is 120, C is 120. We now know that A, D and C can add up to 280 degrees. We also know that the interior angles of a quadrilateral must equal 360. So we can find out the difference between 360 and 280. That gives us 80. So B must be 80. So as you can see, by using the facts that we already have, we can identify the value of missing angles. Time for today's main task. I'd like you to complete the worksheets on the Year 6 home learning page on our school website. Start with the green sheet to secure your learning, and then move on to the blue and finally orange when you're ready for a challenge. Here's a further challenge for you. Now you have finished the main task, you can give the challenge a go. This can be found on the Year 6 home learning page. Well done Year 6, that's the end of another maths home learning lesson and the end of the week, so I will see you next week for some more home learning lessons.